Hello, everyone. Welcome to Sekeres and Price from the Nation Network studios, built by Arbor Lee, right here at the historic Wall Center in beautiful downtown Vancouver. If you're looking to plan your upcoming company holiday party, yeah, believe it or not, that's what time of year we're at here, folks. Give the Wall Center sales team a call, 604-331-1000 to accommodate holiday parties of any size. We are live on YouTube and Twitter and all our socials as usual here at 11:30. And from here on in, folks, we are back to a show every weekday. That is right. 5 days a week is officially back. Glad to have you with us. Jeff Paterson sitting in for the vacation Matt Sekeres, who is back on Tuesday. Welcome, Jeff. Thank you for doing this.
You've rattled me now. Like I feel like we should be singing Christmas carols or something.
I mean, you got to plan it now for later, right?
And this place, we've been here for enough years now. In those weeks leading up to Christmas, people book their holiday parties here.
Super fancy. Very nice. We're getting down to it here, Jeff. Hockey must be close because you will not be here on Monday. Irfan Ghaffar will be in that seat because you are on assignment at the Jake Milford Golf Tournament. We're going to hear from some players finally, hopefully, and you will join us after that, though. So we're looking forward to some context for this upcoming season. Our poll question today, though, dealing with whether or not, folks, you are ready for all of that. With us sniffing out the hockey season here, Young Stars around the corner next weekend. 1 week from today, people in Canucks jerseys will be playing with referees on the ice. Our poll question today: are you ready for the Canucks season to start? Yes, bring it on, or no, give me 3 more weeks of summer. You can log on to Twitter. It's on YouTube as well if you're watching live there, and cast your vote. Let us know what you think. I think you're in the yes category. You ready?
Always. I mean, look, there's a part of my life that the hockey season never ends, right?
Yeah.
So am I ready for it to start again? Yeah, I am. I think there are a number of different camps, though. There are people that, Labor Day, get the kids back to school and you're ready to get back into your routine. And for many, that includes, just consuming the latest on Canucks and Canuck news. There are some for whom, they need young stars. Like that is sort of, all right, Canucks in uniform on the ice. Some would say, hey, training camp is the start. Others would say, no, I'm going to take these 3 months or 3 weeks of summer. I'll be there on October 9th when they start playing for keeps against the Calgary Flames. So, not everybody is ready for the hockey season, but no, absolutely. I voted yes to the poll question, and I'll be out at the Jake on Monday. It's a little earlier this year. Normally, the Jake Milford has been on the final day of Young Stars, and a lot of times Canucks management and some key personnel, they bolt from Penticton to get back for the Jake Milford, which is the unofficial start of training camp. It's also an opportunity for them to shake hands with some of their biggest and well-heeled supporters. But this year, it's ahead of Young Stars and training camp because both of those are happening in Penticton. And I just think the shuttling back and forth logistically just didn't work for everybody. So Canucks are starting with Jake Milford and then launching into both Young Stars and beyond that main training camp.
Yeah, and there's not going to be any shortage of things to talk about throughout the course of all of that. And that leads us to our top story, presented by Yellow Dog and Neighborhood Brewing. This after, we should, as a little aside, say BC Boys now at the helm of 32 Thoughts. Sportsnet's Elliot Friedman is a new co-host, and Kyle Bukauskas. So good luck to them and the new iteration of 32 Thoughts. But there, Elliot Friedman reporting that Thatcher Demko will likely just have to play through the injury that he's currently recovering from. Sounds like they've deemed that surgery is just not a fix here. And Jeff, that's a kind of a vague and scary place, both if you are the team and a fan here. Like, where's the finish line for we'll see?
There's just so much uncertainty around Thatcher Demko, but beyond that, the goaltending position. Now, it was good to see and hear that Artur Silovs was among the guys that was on the ice out at UBC yesterday. So he's in town, and no, he didn't play for Latvia in the Olympic qualifier last weekend. Talk about tendonitis, but the reports out of Latvia were that it's all right. He's going to be ready for Canucks training camp. This is all precautionary. Did the team, the Canucks, lean on Silovs or Latvia to back off the player, especially given the news of Demko and the uncertainty there. So, and then on top of that, the Ian Clark situation and what exactly went down and where does Ian Clark fall in all of this now, and how much influence and sway does he have after being the guy running the goaltending department. So, look, I understand it to a degree. Like, if you're the Vancouver Canucks, you don't want to tip your hand if you are out there negotiating with other teams, if you were looking at exploring the trade route, if you are, in fact, negotiating with Kevin Lankinen, as reports have suggested, Antti Raanta as a PTO, I'd be all right. Like, PTO, there is no risk to the hockey club. None. Now, Antti Raanta played for Rick Tocchet in Arizona, had a couple of really good seasons. That was then. This is now. He was a spare part in Carolina last year, at an .872 save percentage at the National Hockey League level. Played a handful of games in the American Hockey League as well. Save percentage wasn't great there. Do I see Antti Raanta as any sort of long-term fit here? No, but on to prove it, show me what you still got kind of thing on a PTO. Like, it wouldn't be the worst option, I suppose, if they bring a warm body to camp in that regard. But yeah, I mean, it's a little bit crazy, and I can understand the angst in the market here. Basically 10 days out from main training camp and still having no idea about Thatcher Demko's ability to participate in camp, his readiness for the start of the season. And beyond that, it's just like, we watched him push hard to get back to play those final 2 games of the regular season so that he was going to be ready for the playoffs. Got 1 playoff game in, and then he was gone. And that's the last anybody has seen or heard from him. And there was even uncertainty in the offseason about whether he required some sort of procedure. Remember, Patrick Allvin was speaking in code on July 1st when he met the media after free agent signings, and he was asked point blank about Demko. And he said, well, I saw him in Vegas last week at the awards. He was in a good mood. But then he was asked, did he need or has he had any kind of surgery? And Allvin said, well, not yet, which made it sound like one was pending. But anyway, it's just, way too many questions for my liking around such a pivotal position for the Vancouver. We know when Thatcher Demko is healthy what he can do and what he means for this hockey club, but there's just zero certainty right now of where he is, how close to full health, and can he get to, and more importantly, stay there for any length of time, because that is now part of the Thatcher Demko discussion, is injuries, whether he likes it or not. 3 straight years now that he has suffered some sort of significant setback, and you just wonder, with the wear and tear of the position that he plays, is his body cut out to hold up to the requirements necessary to be a top-level National Hockey League goaltender?
And just playing through, like, if you need surgery, you need surgery. In a lot of cases, not all, but in a lot of cases, you undergo said surgery and you are like new after rehabilitation and all that. When you don't even have that to go on, I mean, with most non-surgical injuries, the best cure for those things, not doing what caused the injury, which is goaltending, right?
Well, and I think what adds to the confusion here is that this guy worked so hard, and I watched him. I was there in Edmonton late in that playoff series when he was out there after morning skates and taking shots and looking like he was that close to the point that we all thought that if they got past the Oilers, that he might be a possibility to play against the Dallas Stars.
That's the company line. He was ready, apparently.
And now 10 days from training camp, and he's not ready?
It doesn't make any sense. There was a suggestion, too, from Elliot that the Canucks really wanted the proof in the pudding before the playoffs, and that they're basically, I don't know if it's an ultimatum, that's maybe too strong, but we need to see that you can play before we play you in game 1. And so he gets those 2 games in, and you're just left to extrapolate. Did he rush back? And not everything needs to have a finger of blame pointed at it. And it's also very human nature to want to get back.
Sure.
So like, you wouldn't blame him if it was Thatcher Demko. You might raise an eyebrow if it was somebody else, though, that was pushing Thatcher Demko to rush back. That ultimately just could be hindsight. I mean, you feel good in that moment, so you continue to push forward, and ultimately you remain injured. Maybe that's as simple as it is. But, the fact that he does come back and then so quickly is removed again, it doesn't look great.
Well, one of the things that stuck with me was, and I remember him saying it in the moment, and I thought, wow, our first opportunity to talk to him ahead of that return against Calgary, and then he played the Winnipeg game, game 82. And he talked about, he thanked the training staff for working as hard as he did. He talked about, 2-a-days and essentially around the clock therapy to get him back to this position. Now, we've also heard from Jim Rutherford here in the offseason where he said one of the things that the Canucks are going to have to work hard at is to get Demko himself to dial it back, that this guy just works as hard as anybody that Jim Rutherford has been around. And he's been around. He was a goaltender himself. Different era, probably didn't have the same training routines that the guys today do. But, whether it's 50 games, whether it's turns out to be 40 games, who knows how many he's going to be available to the Vancouver Canucks for. But, they're going to have to manage his minutes. And I don't just mean his starts. If he needs days off, if they need to use the practice goaltender, like completely get Demko away from the rink, because it really isn't about him being ready on October 9th against Calgary. They don't need him in November, December. With where this team is competitively, as long as they can get credible goaltending, they should be a playoff team, and that's when they need Thatcher Demko. I mean, that's what's missing from his resume. I know he had the bubble, but really he hasn't been there as the guy, the starter, available to the Vancouver Canucks for any sort of playoff run. And got one game last year, and that was it. Artur Silovs has more playoff experience at the NHL level than Thatcher Demko.
And you mentioned Silovs now also dinged to some degree, although as you mentioned, is at least on ice. Why was he injured? According to Latvia and the Latvia national team, worked too hard in the offseason. So you were talking about the work ethic of Thatcher Demko. And you wonder if this comes from the top and it's not all going to be Ian Clark now, with Terenius in the fold as the goaltending coach. But Ian Clark's pretty intense and demanding. And it sounds like he might have had two very good students here that have taken on, that demanding, rigorous attitude. I wonder if it's almost to their detriment here that both of these guys are injured here.
Yeah, it's a fair question. And Marco Terenius, who gets promoted to goaltending coach, is a protege of Ian Clark's. And so you'd have to think that there's a lot of similarities in their approach and just the way that they go about their business. So it'll be interesting to see. But yeah, I mean, to me, that is the story of the offseason, is just the uncertainty around the most important position on the ice for a hockey club that wants to take that next step, that got to Game 7 and pushed the Oilers to Game 7 of the second round. And they did it with essentially the third-string goaltender who took the ball and ran with it. But, who's healthy? Who's going to be available for opening night? What kind of workload are we looking at here? And just the timing of, I was away for 2 weeks. We planned a family vacation late in summer. Foolishly thought that we'd be able to just go and it would be quiet on the Canuck front. Like the wheels weren't up on our flight out of Vancouver. I hadn't put my phone in, honestly, I had not put my phone in airplane mode when I saw a notification that they had traded Vasily Podkolzin. And I thought, oh man, here we go. I'm heading out on 2 weeks of vacation overseas, and it starts with Vasily Podkolzin being jettisoned to Edmonton. And from there was the Ian Clark news. There was Sammy Blais on a PTO. There turned out to be a fair bit of Canuck news as I made my way around. But yeah, I mean, look, it's been a busy offseason, lots of movement on free agency day on July the 1st. But here we sit now in the first week of September, and there's just so much uncertainty around the goaltending position. And it's not really the way that you want to launch into a new National Hockey League season.
Well, reminder of Young Stars next weekend if you're going up, or for training camp for that matter. Yellow Dog in the neighborhood and right in the center of town in Penticton. You can't miss them. But also, if you're in the vicinity, grab your tickets for Cask and Keg in Oliver, just south of Penticton, during Wine Capital Weekend, Saturday, September the 21st. Get your YD Bevco fix with samples from Yellow Dog, Neighborhood, Yellow Dog Spirits, and lots of other great breweries. Should be a lot of fun. So the Okanagan is the place to be. Along all these lines, first show that we've had since Ian McIntyre's sit down with Jim Rutherford to talk on all these goaltending matters. I mean, didn't reveal much. He kept his cards close to his vest here, but said that the team was going to wait until training camp, like training camp physicals, to get a true sense of where both Demko and Silovs are at, all because they really don't want to sign somebody ideally and get into LTIR unless they absolutely have to. It's valuable cap space. So, there are CBA rules that prevent, team staff from really going too in depth with players in the offseason. Now, they might be able to get around that a little bit because these players are quote unquote injured, but it sounds like they really want the full diagnostic setup from their health staff at training camp before they make their next sort of decision.
Yeah, and they've got a little bit of time on their side, but not a lot now. I mean, we're into the home stretch in terms of the run-up to training camp. So, every day is another day for Thatcher Demko to get a little bit closer and a little bit healthier. And again, I was buoyed by the fact that Artur Silovs was on the ice as part of, I think there were 3 goaltenders and 17 skaters out at UBC.
I mean, it's almost 2 full weeks here before camp.
So it comes back to the uncertainty, though. Like, if I had a sense that I knew exactly what the issue was with Thatcher Demko, then maybe it'd be easier to put a timeline on it, but nobody seems to know. And I'm not even sure the Vancouver Canucks do when I hear Jim Rutherford talking about leaving it in the hands of the doctors and the physicals. And that's why these stories about Kevin Lankinen and Antti Raanta won't go away, right? Like, I do think that the Canucks have certainly kicked tires and probably continue to, and it won't surprise me if there is a guy with NHL experience that isn't currently on the roster that's at training camp, whether it's a signing, but if you're signing Kevin Lankinen, then you're probably going to have to use every dollar available to you and dip into the LTIR savings. That's where Antti Raanta at training camp could come in, be an extra body that can stop some pucks, might get in a preseason game or two just to help you spell off the workload of the other guys with no commitment financially whatsoever. But it sounds like Lankinen thinks that there's a contract out there for him in the National Hockey League. Yes. I think Ranta's prepared to come to camp as a PTO guy.
Which is the more savvy hockey move, though, to borrow the Lou Lamoriello phrase, if you've got time, you use it, which is sort of where they're going, versus having all your holes covered and your deficiencies taken care of before you get into camp. I mean, I think Canucks fans might get a little excited about the fact that this is a team that it's minding the pocketbook, the ledger here, and wanting to save that LTIR space for later in the season, knowing that it sort of works like compound interest in some regards and gets bigger and bigger as the season goes on. I mean, when's the last time you heard that from a Canuck management group?
Yeah, I mean, look, they've spent to the cap. People can say what they want about the Aquilini's. One thing that ownership group has done has allowed management to spend to the cap, even through the bad years when they shouldn't have been spending anywhere close to the cap. But they spent to the cap, and now that they're a competitive team, they've got the green light from ownership to spend to the cap. But there's also this idea of saving for a rainy day, as you said. It compounds. And I do think that management was kicking itself last year. It wanted to do more at the trade deadline, and it simply could not. Its hands were tied because it just didn't have the wriggle room. And really, since Jim Rutherford's introductory press conference when he took over from Jim Benning, and he talked about creating a cap cushion, and it's one thing that they really haven't done. They have continued to bump right up against the cap. It's allowed them to be competitive. It's allowed them to sign big tickets, but it hasn't given them the freedom ultimately to do some of the things that they wanted to do, like the trade deadline last year. They made their moves early. They would have liked to have added one more piece. And when you look at them going to Game 7 against the Oilers and coming up a goal short, one more scoring piece somewhere along the line, like how much of a difference could that have made in a series that was boiled down to one game, winner take all?
And the other thing, you don't want to get too ahead of ourselves and write off some of these players, but there's UFAs that are tradeable that do open up more cap space for you in the second half of the season. I think everyone's hoping that Pius Suter is a part of the solution, but there's $1.6 million. He's a UFA to be. Forbort comes in at $1.5 million. He's a UFA to be. You send that over somewhere else and open up space. I mean, they've got some UFA pieces to trade away, and there's still the pressure on Nils Höglander, of course, going into the final year before RFA status kicks in again. So they've got some decisions.
They've got a chance to. Some of the guys on the fringe, whether it's Nils Amon or Phil Di Giuseppe, try to bury them. They'd have to get through waivers. If they get claimed, that's a contract that comes off the books. If you get it down to Abbotsford, you can bury those types of contracts to free up a little bit of money. So I think there are some avenues still available to the Vancouver Canucks here. And we've seen that this group can be aggressive. I think they can be creative when it comes to working in and around the cap. So, let's see what happens. The other part too is that, if you bring in a goalie on a PTO, maybe you get a few days and maybe a preseason game or two out of him, but there's nothing that says that when the roster squeeze comes and teams have to get down to 23, that there isn't going to be an NHL goaltender or two that shakes free that could be attractive to the Vancouver Canucks. So again, there are different avenues to explore here, but one thing is certain, and that is that their goaltending position is murky at best to start this National Hockey League training camp.
Also putting this together, getting back to the golf tournament, Canucks golf tournament on Monday, the Jake Milford, is Thatcher Demko going to play? Now, we've heard from fans that have seen him golfing and others. It is ironclad. He's golfing right now. But I wonder if they would think that official golf on company time might not be a great look. Or do they just say, hey, it's a different thing, and he's very close to being National Hockey League ready, and that's the actual, I think, intellectual answer, is that just because he can golf doesn't mean he can play NHL hockey. But I could also see the other side of it, that it's bad optics. If he's injured, do everything you can to not remain injured.
Yeah, look, people will freak out about the smallest things. That's
right.
Life in this market. I get that. I guess I'd be curious to see, is the knee wrapped? Is he wearing a brace? Is what can we detect? If he just shows up and he looks completely healthy, I'll trust that he has it on authority that he can't do more damage to the knee by playing golf. He plays a lot of golf. I know, he's a golfer. So I'm sure he'd like to be able to play. And look, people are paying big bucks to take part in the Jake Milford. It's not a small amount.
Big charitable arm of the Canucks. Yeah.
But they're paying that money. They want to play with the stars, right? So if you're a season ticket holder or you're somebody that's decided to pony up the money required to get a foursome in this group, you'd love Thatcher Demko to be the Canuck representative in your foursome, right?
Yeah.
So there is that sort of element of giving the people what they want. But until we hear from Demko, and I don't expect him to get into great detail about all that he's gone through here over the last 6 months. He seems loath to discuss his injury history and his injury situation. But at some point, I would assume we're going to hear from Thatcher Demko, whether it's Monday or whether it's later in camp or the start of the season. At some point, I do hope that we can just get a few answers about all that has gone on with this guy over the last bunch of months. Again, he means so much to the Vancouver Canucks. And we saw it last year, the start of last season, hands down. The first 6 weeks of the season, he was the best goaltender in the National Hockey League, finishes runner-up to Connor Hellebuck for the Vezina. When he's on, he can absolutely be a difference maker for the Vancouver Canucks, and that was one of the disappointments. Not that Artur Silovs didn't hold up his own end of the bargain in the playoffs, but what might a healthy Thatcher Demko have meant to the Vancouver Canucks in a 7-game series? They lost 4 times to the Oilers in those 7 games. If Thatcher Demko is dialed in and on his game, you tell me that he alone couldn't have swung one of the results in the Canucks' favor?
I mean, I think emphatically he would have. Yeah, absolutely. That's how big the goaltending position is. Again, doubling back to the Friedman reporting, he doesn't think we're talking months. It's not the first half of the season that he's going to miss. It seems like he is close. But is he close enough?
Isn't part of it for you, though, like it is for me, great. Whenever he gets the green light to return, good. I want to see Thatcher Demko in there. But my question then is, for how long? I guess I just don't trust that he's going to, just getting back means that he's going to be there for the rest of the season. It's a demanding position. We know that. His body has shown that, it just, and through no fault of his own. Again, this guy works as hard at his craft as anybody, but there is wear and tear that comes with that position, and his body just hasn't been able to handle the grind. And so I just kind of expect that injuries are going to be a part of the Thatcher Demko story moving forward now.
Yeah, and you know what? Fans want to see him at the start, but if you knew that the deal was you can either have him at the start and roll the dice that he's ready for the playoffs, or you can wait an extra 5 weeks and be sure he's ready for the playoffs. And there's no guarantee, but you know what I mean? I think you'd probably say, no, keep him out the extra 5 weeks and raise my odds exponentially that he's going to be there come playoff time. We should mention 5 days a week, starting on Monday again, and Jeff will be there at the Milford, and we'll talk with him at some point on the show as well. Pivoting here, big night in the CFL tonight. The BC Lions are in Montreal to take on the league-leading 10-1 Montreal Alouettes. It'll be a decent crowd, over 22,000 tickets already sold as of yesterday. So it should be a fun TV show here for us in BC to watch. Yes, Nathan Rourke is rounding into form, starting to look like Nathan Rourke, but he is about to be tested. Ottawa's a good team too, and he did very well versus Ottawa, but it's not 10-1 good.
Yeah, look, I was on the other side of the world for Touchdown Pacific. I will say I saw a social video. It looked spectacular.
Yeah.
Like it looked like it went about as well as the CFL and Lions could have hoped, people of Victoria. And Nathan Rourke held up his end of the bargain. Like, that's the Nathan Rourke we remember. So let's hope that he has shaken off whatever rust he had from being a full-time starting quarterback. The numbers were undeniable. Okay, Farhan the gears at halftime. I was happy to see that. I'm happy anytime.
That's right.
Yeah. But let's hope he can pick up where he left off. Because it's kind of been one step forward, one step back for the Lions with and without Nathan Rourke. At some point here, you hope, they're 12 games into this thing. You'd like to see them get on some kind of run, get a little bit of traction. But this is a difficult jumping on point facing a team that's 10-1 and clearly on paper, the best team in the Canadian Football League. So they're going to be tested, no doubt about it.
Yeah. And it's a short week for the Lions, and it's a bye week. Coming off a bye week for the Owls. Now, usually you like that because you get healthy as the bye week team, but momentum might be there for the Lions. Nathan Rourke might be feeling it finally, and coming out of an emotional win of sorts at Touchdown Pacific that you mentioned. We'll see. The Owls have already qualified for the playoffs, believe it or not, and that is not the case in the West, Jeff.
No, it's a logjam now, and even a team like Edmonton that was given up for dead early on, like they're back in the mix here.
They're tied with the Stamps for wins.
Right. And it's the back half of the Labor Day weekend. So the Elks, old habits die hard, but put me down. They play, and so do the Bombers and the Riders again here. So it kind of feels like it's must-win territory for those teams that are down at the bottom. Can't afford many more losses, if any more losses. And somebody is likely, I guess a tie is possible, but somebody's likely to win in that Riders-Bombers game. So the Lions, if they're going to, keep up with the teams at the top, they're going to have to find a way. And we'll see what they've just been so inconsistent. That's why I hope that Nathan Rourke now has kind of hit his groove here and can lead them to what would be a massive upset. Because anybody beating Montreal right now, I think that qualifies as an upset. They've won 5 in a row, and as you said, well rested, coming off a bye. It's going to be difficult for the BC Lions.
And again, Vernon Adams is expected to be the backup, so they have insurance if things don't go right for Nathan Rourke. I think Lions fans are hoping that, again, more of the Ottawa game carries over, but Vernon Adams on the comeback trail and was taking second-team reps, so looks good for the BC Lions to have unabashedly the best quarterbacking duo in the Canadian Football League. 24 hours ago, it finally happened. Probably a decade too late, but congratulations to Vancouver Whitecap Ryan Gauld, who is officially and finally capped for the Scottish national team. Alas, it comes in a last-minute defeat at the hands of Poland. They had come back to draw level at 2 after being down 2-0 at the half. But by all accounts, he played very well. He came on in the 71st minute, and courtesy of our friend there at AFT in Canada, says he not only led Scotland in chances created, but he tied for the match lead in that stat in terms of chances created. So Ryan Gauld did Ryan Gauld things. Alas, just not enough for Scotland in a 3-2 defeat to Poland. They're off to Lisbon now to take on Portugal, so it's not getting any easier. But he shook off some rust, and maybe that performance in just 20 minutes of play, maybe that earns him a start in Lisbon. We'll have to see. But congratulations.
Good for him. Yep, absolutely well earned, and dashes any hopes that maybe he was going to play for Canada someday.
Yes. Meanwhile, his club team, Whitecaps, hosting FC Dallas, the only game that BC plays this weekend with the Lions away. 7:30 kickoff or on your MLS season pass on Apple. 5 absences for the Whitecaps on international duty, 4 for FC Dallas, so it's pretty fair in that regard. Stuart Armstrong, the new Scot, 2 Scots that are DPs for the Whitecaps. He maybe 20 minutes. We'll see if I had to guess, but they do theoretically have Eddie Ocampo, the new U22 signing, and Daber Caicedo is back. He's available for selection as well. So all those absences, yes. But they've got 3 guys that are ready for some minutes. So I would say the starting 11 could get a little interesting, but a strong bench at the very least with some veteran options available to them. Dallas has only 1 road win this year, but that was 2 weeks ago. So they at least got that out of the way recently. Whitecaps need to start getting some home dominance because they've got a middling home record. And the whole idea of them playing well here this year is to get them into the top 4 of the Western Conference so that they can host a playoff series here in the first round, and that's sort of pointless if you're not very good at home.
Feels like they're in a stretch of opportunity, though. Here, Dallas, as you said, struggled on the road.
Yeah, and they're out of the playoff picture right now.
San Jose and Houston, the next 3 matches for the Whitecaps here. They can only play them one at a time, and certainly can't look past Dallas here, but it feels like an opportunity to find some of that traction that you were mentioning. Those are all 3 teams that are behind the Caps in the Western standings.
Yeah. Houston's decent, but there's no top 4 team on the horizon. You're right. If you can't beat Houston at home, if you can't beat Dallas at home, then my goodness, as good as they've been on the road, they've got to figure that all out. So we'll see what that looks like. And the more minutes, the better for the new guys. I think fans are curious as to what Ocampo and Stuart Armstrong can bring to the table. Time for the menu presented by Greta Bar YVR. 50 West Cordova, food and drink specials every day. Your place to get set for the game, or if you don't have tickets, watch the game with the best screens and atmosphere in the city. And don't forget about the now famous Greta arcade games as well. Check it out at Greta Bar at 50 West Cordova. Flames voice, Jon Abbott, our good friend from TSN 1040, has moved on to now his second team since. He was the voice of the Canucks here on radio for some time, moved on to call a bunch of Ottawa Senators games, mostly for TSN on the TV side, and now has just been announced as the Sportsnet voice of the Calgary Flames. So really exciting stuff.
It is, and he replaces Rick Ball, who's moved on to a great opportunity in Chicago, and it just, again, drives home this notion a decade ago how fortunate Canuck fans were to have Shorty, Rick Ball, and Jon Abbott, who are all now holding down, television jobs of prominence in the National Hockey League. There aren't many of them.
Yeah.
And those 3 guys, any combination of them on a given night, were delivering top-notch broadcast here in Vancouver.
3 of the 32 voices, former Vancouver Canuck TSN 1040 alumni. So congratulations to all of them. Greg Bellows to the Tacoma News Tribune is going to stop by. If you haven't really been taking note of Seahawks training camp and sort of what's happening, we'll give you a bit of a primer going into week number 1. And new Whitecap Stuart Armstrong is going to tell us where he's at before his expected debut tomorrow and what brought him to our fine city of Vancouver. And before I forget, as we talk about team broadcasters and Jon Abbott, still no sign of a new Canuck reporter, embedded Canuck reporter, right?
No.
PJ reported in August that Cape Paterson wasn't coming back after a year on the job, and we'll see if they even replace that gig, I suppose.
Yeah, they've got people in-house that are providing content, but in terms of being that sort of face on social, not sure. Haven't heard what their plan is. And
they also saw VP of Comms Lauren Finney leave this summer, and that's only 2 years after his predecessor Chris Brumwell was dismissed. Chief Revenue Officer Terry Collins gone as well. And we know personally of sales managers leaving just months after arriving at the Vancouver Canucks. As well as things are going on the ice, or so it seems at least, what it is like in that office. What is it about that office that is causing so many to do the Grandpa Simpson and take one step in and immediately spin around and depart?
Yeah, they look like a organization that has alignment top to bottom on the hockey ops side.
Yes.
But you do wonder, with that many moving parts and replacing people and onboarding and getting them up to speed, like, how do you get that continuity and sort of the structure top to bottom that they've got in other parts of the operation? But, some people leave for other opportunities. Some people leave because they're asked to leave.
Some people leave for their own sanity.
Yeah.
Mike O'Doyle named president of business operations for the Canucks in August 2021. Since then, oh boy. Time for our best bets, brought to you by Bet365, proud partner of Sekeres and Price. Want to get us started? What do you got?
I'm looking at the Sunday Nighter this week. It might be the best game in week 1 of the National Football League schedule. A great start last night, obviously. Toe on the line at the final whistle. Looked like a tying touchdown, and ultimately it wasn't. But the Rams at the Detroit Lions. A lot of people bullish on the Lions. A lot of people think the Rams are going to be a playoff team at the very least. So nice looking matchup Sunday Nighter in Detroit. Lions are 4.5-point favorites. If you take the Lions, you can get them at 190.
That was Detroit.
The Detroit Lions, yes.
I'll address the BC Lions at the very. I'm going to hedge my cheering here a little bit. I like the Lions' chances overall. In general schemes of things, I like the Lions' chances. But I want a little love, and at just 4 points against the 10-1 team on the road, short week, long week. We talked about that. Going to take the Owls -4. Gonna hedge just a little bit. Open an account with Bet365 today. Bet on a huge range of markets, whatever the sport, whatever the moment, never ordinary. At Bet365, use code VANBONUS. Coming up, the dude I used to throw to for the opening face-off on Canucks broadcasts, Jon Abbott, is next. Normally when we talk about Greta Bar YVR, we're telling you to make it a game night at Greta, and we're talking about hockey. Of course, we're not quite yet at hockey season, but game night can mean whatever it means, and that could mean soccer or football game to watch on the screen, or your own games, because the arcade is half the fun at Greta Bar YVR. Make it your game night at 50 West Cordova. And of course, great food and drink specials. And you can also make it a late game night, as they're open late every single night. So make it a late game night, your game night at Greta Bar YVR, 50 West Cordova. Sekeres and Price from the historic Wall Center, and our next guest is a presentation of Mr. Lube. Mr. Lube and Tires. Change your oil, change your wipers event is on now. Visit MrLube.com to download your coupon for a free pair of Goodyear hybrid wiper blades with any oil change, only for a limited time at Mr. Lube, with 18 locations in the Lower Mainland. The wonderfully welcoming face that you see if you're watching on YouTube is, of course, your former voice of the Vancouver Canucks and now voice of the Calgary Flames. Congratulations and welcome back to Mr. Jon Abbott. How are you, sir?
Guys, I'm great. It's really nice to connect with you, and I'm really looking forward to a new rivalry with Calgary and Vancouver, but being able to get into BC and see a little bit more often. So this is just an early preview, and I appreciate you putting up with my North Bay connection here. I'm just making all the stops before getting to Alberta.
Visiting all of your Ontario family before you have to depart. And for those that have lost track of you, keep us up to date on what the last couple of years, you left with us in the mini-phased deconstruction of TSN 1040. What have you been doing the last couple of years?
I was fortunate enough that Gord Miller can't call every game at TSN, so they needed somebody else to step in and do some Ottawa Senators broadcasts, and was very, very fortunate to be part of that broadcast. It's a super crew. So I'll dearly miss them, but that opportunity really helped pave the way for the one in front of me, which I'm super excited about. So from Sens back out west to Calgary, and can't wait for training camp on the 19th, and then officially get going in October. So it's almost time to officially become an Albertan, and we're really excited to be able to do that.
Obviously, the season's going to have a different feel to it in Calgary, given the news here the last couple of weeks and Johnny Gaudreau, and we saw the outpouring. And, I know he had left Calgary, but obviously opening night, I'm sure there'll be some sort of memory and memorial. And when Columbus comes to town, not that should impact you in the way that you broadcast, but what about just your outlook for the Flames? I'm sure as you went through the process, put your thinking cap on and try to figure out what kind of season it's going to be in Calgary. What do you expect from the Flames, who seem like they're sort of in a phase of transition right now?
I'll try not to answer too long, which I know is difficult for a play-by-play guy, especially me, J-Pat. But just the first part, certainly continue to think of the Gaudreau family and their extended family. And almost 10 years in Calgary, he's got to start to his career there. So a lot of the people that I had known previously within the Flames organization, and some of those I had just had the pleasure of meeting, we're really close to that family. And so you think of everybody that this has affected. And one of the things that we heard, my family heard about Calgary, is just how a great a community it is. And I think that's been on full display in the most tragic of circumstances, but really uplifting the Gaudreau family. I wasn't able to make it to the candlelight vigil, but watched it online, and just the outpouring of emotions and support from everybody, that once, adopted the Gaudreaus really for the beginning of his career was amazing to see. So it kind of speaks to the Calgary community, which we're excited to be a part of real soon. And I think it's going to be an emotional year that way. I don't think it's going to, they're doing that was the first of 13 days honoring Johnny Gaudreau in Calgary. So the funeral will be coming up next week. And I don't know that there's going to be closure anytime soon, but I think it's through things like hockey and through the Flames family that, people are able to be supported. So I think right from night one, Jeff and Blake, and then of course the head-to-head against Columbus, those moments will continue through the season. And I think the Flames, those were the glory days a little bit when Johnny Hockey was doing his thing. And he's certainly one of the bigger superstars that Calgary's had in their history. And now they're trying to harness some new superstars. So it's a little bit of an in-between year, I think. I think they're going to surprise some teams around the NHL. I think they're going to be really hardworking. They're going to be a tough out, but they're going to rely on some of those experienced names like a Kadri, like a Coleman, like a Lomberg, who just got brought in after winning the Stanley Cup to support the group. And then they're going to transition a lot of names that are on the cusp, I think, or are starting to figure out how to play in the NHL on a nightly basis. So I'm expecting a real fun to watch competitive team in a real tough division and conference.
I know that you spent the last couple of years in Ottawa. You're an Ontario guy. You've seen the Battle of Ontario firsthand over the years. How much fun do you think the Battle of Alberta will be to be a part of?
I can't wait. October 13th is the first version of that, and it'll be in Edmonton. So I'm sure there will be some red sweaters ready to show their support in the crowd against the Oilers. And that's pretty much the first question I get asked whenever I'm talking to somebody or Flames fans or have this type of opportunity. And I can't wait. You're right. The Battle of Ontario is one that I've experienced, but I think it cuts deeper almost with the Battle of Alberta, just especially the recent playoff history and given where, these teams are going for Calgary, I can't imagine that there's many games bigger on their schedule this year. And they're looking to kind of slow down the Oilers a little bit, give it to them and remind them that they're not just going to cruise through anybody this season, let alone the Calgary Flames. So, yeah, if we get a Mike Smith and Cam Talbot dropping the gloves at center ice, that would be great. I don't know that it's going to get quite that feisty this time around, at least with the goalies. But I think there's enough players, there's enough chippiness in the Flames that they'll be under the skin of some of those Oilers, and I'm expecting a really, really great Battle of Alberta all season long. And yeah, I can't wait to get started with that one on the 13th of October, pretty early into the season.
For the Oilers, it's the curse of being the Stanley Cup finalist now, and that you're the rival of everybody, right? And probably for too long for Flames fans, they've mostly been the little brother in that relationship in the Battle of Alberta. But I mean, we've loved certain chapters of the Flames Canucks rivalry. But now, of course, because of the playoff series, it looks like Oilers Canucks has probably taken over. But it would be nice to see the Flames maybe get off to a good start and remind people that they are something to be reckoned with. Because, right now, I think more Canucks fans are looking forward to Oilers games than they are to Canucks Flames games.
Yeah, and I've been part of the other side of Flames Canucks rivalry, and we're going to see it in game one. I'm excited for that too. But I think maybe secretly it's the Canucks not minding if the Flames somehow take one or a bunch of games away from the Edmonton Oilers in the regular season. And I do think you're right, Blake. I think, it's everybody against Edmonton at this point, it feels like. And so the Flames are more than happy, I'm sure, to lend a helping hand through the course of the regular season. And, the Oilers are going to be tough to stop no matter what. But again, you get that little extra jump from the Flames, and especially when it gets into the Saddle Dome. 2 years left there if everything goes on time and schedule, and they're over a month already into the construction of a new rink in Calgary. So they want to send the Saddle Dome out right, and I think there's nothing sweeter than beating the Oilers on a regular basis. And I do expect it to be I don't expect it to be lopsided. The Flames have the regular season record, guys. I have to point that out. The postseason's a little different, but all-time Battle of Alberta goes the Flames' way in the regular season. So I think they'll be tucking that in their back pocket.
I don't want you to suck up to the audience here, Abs. I want to give it to you straight. What's the division look like? Is it a done deal? Is Edmonton the division champion? And then how does it go from there? Because I think there's probably some cynics, maybe not so much in Vancouver, but in other parts of the NHL market, that would say, no, that was everything coming together for a fully healthy Canucks team. That maybe they go down a couple of pegs, maybe Vegas rises again. Maybe there's a surprise Flame season. So how do you suspect the sort of the top four? And LA is not to be forgotten either here. What do you think this division looks like?
Yeah, I agree with you. I do think, Anaheim and San Jose probably still trying to put that together. LA will be interesting to follow. I think there's pressure there on the Kings to get a little bit more traction. I think the Flames are going to push. I think they're going to be a tough out. I don't mind when you consider the Canucks and Oilers. Like, I think it comes down to goaltending, and maybe that's unfair to put it solely on that position, but what's the game count for Thatcher Demko? If he's completely healthy, I think that's a big storyline that could change things in the Canucks' favor. And how are the Oilers able to continue? What Stuart Skinner are they going to get? Are they going to get the guy that had a renaissance in the playoffs after sitting and taking a look, or is this a guy that has experienced a lot of postseason success now, but has all the pressure of a team that's expected to get back there and then win it? So I do look at the goaltending position maybe deciding a lot. And yeah, Vegas is, I don't think you can ever count them out. We've learned that from day one when we were talking about Sekeres being so irked with the fact that they haven't had any kind of pain or misery. And, for the most part, that's run true through their existence here.
On goaltending, by the way, Calgary? What's that goaltending like?
Vladar is supposed to be ready to go.
Yeah.
So we expect to see him in camp, and I think they're going to give Dustin Wolf a healthy look. So I don't know as far as game one. I'm sure we'll continue to bat that storyline around through training camp when it starts on the 19th. But I do expect it's going to be a two-headed monster in Calgary, and I think they really, really like what they have in Dustin Wolf and want to see him get even a bigger sample size. He finished the season for him last year, had a good record amidst players exiting Calgary fairly quickly. So the team that he started with, looking through the glass of a real American Hockey League premier goaltender, trying to jump his way up to Calgary, was not the Flames team that he finished with. So I'm sure they'll try to shelter him a little bit, not put too much pressure on him. And Vladar has every reason to have a calendar year that's a big one for him as well. So I do expect that both guys will get a good look this year.
John, sticking with goaltending, but just moving it back to you, and I know that you were a goalie of some note in your day.
He's pretty good.
But I saw all the things you said online about having the chance to work with Jamie McLennan the last bunch of years in the broadcast booth. What about the opportunity to partner with Kelly Rudy, who is generally regarded as one of the good guys in this business?
I'm really excited. Yeah, I mean, not too many more people more fortunate than me to go from class act to Jamie McLennan, who I just, as you said, can't say enough good things about. He's a dear friend now, and we've enjoyed lots of time working together, to Kelly Rudy, who I haven't had the pleasure of working with before, but we've already had a few phone calls, and, we're getting set to catch up as training camp begins. It's kind of, I feel like I'm the rookie at camp trying to get used to the veterans around me. And in some ways that is a good parallel, because, I'm refamiliarizing myself with Kelly, and I don't think it'll take long, hopefully not, to just get a good, a good playoff of one another. And Greg Mellon I've worked with in the past, very excited to reconnect with him. And Ryan Leslie on the host side is just fantastic as well. So yeah, I knew that it was a special group in Calgary, and I hope just to be able to fit in quickly and have lots of fun along the way this year. And I think Kelly, how can you get any better as a play-by-play guy to come in with that type of a security blanket? I mean, not only has he played the game, he set the bar for that position in so many different ways, including a guy like Dustin Wolf, who's a California kid coming up to play in the National Hockey League. Not too many of those. And Cooley, who they signed, is another one. So they actually have a direct line to the broadcast booth, and Kelly Rudy, with two of the three Flames goaltenders that they may use this year, and just a grade A guy as well as Kelly. So yeah, really looking forward to it. It's good we have some time before we get going on the broadcast, but at the same time, can't wait until we actually get in the booth and get to call a regular season game and get to enjoy each other playing off one another a little bit more in that type of environment.
As we see here with Shorty on the regional broadcasts, he doesn't get the Hockey Night in Canada games that often, although I guess he's picked up a little bit in frequency. But what's the ballpark just in terms of number of broadcasts that you'll do as the regional package there?
I think somewhat the same when it comes to, those national games are Saturday nights. I don't have my set schedule as far as the breakdown yet. I think I was actually part of the problem, having that deal come along very close to the end of August, just like it was for me to follow Rick to Vancouver the first time, ironically enough. So, thank you, Rick, for another opening there. And
yeah, that's right.
Everybody believing in me a second time as well. But, when you think of splitting a season with Gord Miller, it really helped me as a broadcaster, and going back to the Ottawa Senators days, that is, being able to take from him and share the booth with him and be able to see what works so well for him. I'm excited to have a few more games. It should be in the 60 to 70 count, I think, but nothing clearly set out yet as they try to get everybody in the right places for the season to begin. So I'll know a little bit more in the next couple of weeks, but very, very grateful and very excited that it's Sportsnet and the Flames, and there should be lots of fun moments to capture this year. And I know everybody's excited about the new stadium coming in new arena and coming in Calgary. And I know you guys would be too, because you've spent enough time in the Saddle Dome over the years. But
yes,
from the broadcast perch, for me,
yeah, you're right.
I love the old building. I love the Saddle Dome. You're right on top of it. You can feel the energy of the crowd. It's the old steel girders that bend and flex with every loud moment or bass coming through. They got a new jumbotron, so I'm actually very much looking forward to calling games in the Saddle Dome before we get to the new rink in a couple of years.
Two of the best views in the league, probably Vancouver and Calgary, right on top of the action. Be remiss if I didn't ask you about what you thought of the Canucks offseason moves. Not often you have a 109-point season, make as many changes as the Canucks ultimately did. Anybody of the newcomers that the Canucks have brought in that sort of tickles your fancy and you see as a good addition?
Well, I kind of lost you there, Blake. Sorry, but yeah.
In terms of the new additions for the Canucks, anybody you really like?
Oh, pardon me. Yeah, you know what? I would say overall, it seems like Vancouver has insulated themselves well. And as we look at today's game, I think that's where a lot of the teams that have had success, I mean, it's beyond a three-line team. Really, if you can have your fourth line be a competitive fourth line, that's going to make such a big difference for you in the postseason. So I would say just overall, the fact that they're kind of plugging in some holes and not just relying on the top two lines is probably where I would go with that one. It's maybe a bit of a cop-out, but I just think, and you guys see it on a nightly basis, it's a slog to compete in the division, let alone get to the playoffs and have the type of conference battles you have, and then somehow have enough in the tank to go coast to coast if you're lucky enough to do that in Stanley Cup Finals. So,
but can you imagine you imagine on opening night if the Flames face somebody not named Thatcher Demko, not named Artur Silovs? Like right now, that's a real possibility for the Flames on night one.
Yeah, that probably was the biggest circle when you're looking at teams Calgary's going to play, and not knowing where that position's going to be at. And you kind of got Silovs out of nowhere, didn't you? I mean, I know he had the funky shirts that caught on, and he became a bit of a folklore in Vancouver. But even
injuries are a thing.
Yeah, it's that'll be interesting to see. And you know what? As far as the Flames go, like I think that's where their head's at. It's come in and surprise some teams that may look past you because some of the roster moves, but don't discredit the type of GM that Craig Conroy is. Don't discredit Ryan Huska as a coach. They're going to demand a lot out of their team on a nightly basis. They're going to demand, a lot of hard work as well. So I don't think anyone can sleep on Calgary, to put it lightly.
From the shores of Lake Nipissing in North Bay, Ontario, we appreciate you taking time away from the family and your goodbyes to them as you become a Westerner again. We appreciate your time today, Abs. And
it's his farewell tour.
It is the Abs farewell tour. You and Oasis, very similar. Thanks so much, man. And
really
best of
happy
luck
for you.
Yeah, we'll touch base, I'm sure, but best of luck in getting things started there in Calgary.
Thanks, fellas. I really appreciate it. Hopefully the connection wasn't too bad. I will be much more clean shaven. I'm teaching the youngest guy to fish today, so I guess I look like I'm fitting the part. But we're sneaking some quick family time in. I'm driving the van out next week, full of stuff. So the journey continues, and can't wait to get to Calgary. And then also, game one's going to be pretty special as well. Be able to hopefully get in there and catch up with you guys a lot this season. So thanks for bearing with the look and the long answers, and really, really appreciating the fact we get to catch up a little bit more. Thanks, guys.
Have fun, Abs.
It's happy hour on Sekeres and Price. Today's beer of the day from Yellow Dog is the Play Dead IPA.
Our next guest joins us from the Tacoma News Tribune. Longtime listeners / viewers will, of course, know the name and face. Greg Bell, the West Point grad, former Army captain, joins us once again here on Sekeres and Price. How are you, sir?
I'm very well. Good to see you again, Blake. How's it going, Jeff?
Yeah, good.
We're looking for a primer here as the Seahawks begin this season. 9-8 last year, and some betting odds at the very least that sort of suggest that they could do better than that. And I know that Mike McDonald's been talked about as a dark horse coach of the year, but I mean that's presuming he wins more than last year, which I don't know. Is that a fait accompli in your mind? Is it a guaranteed 9-win season here for the Seahawks?
No, not at all guaranteed, Blake. But it is true they aren't starting over. Most times a regime change, it's a 3-4 win team. They have their quarterback in place. They have the skill position: DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, Jackson Smith and Jigba, Kenneth Walker at the running back position. But everything's new. I mean, all three systems are new: offense, defense, special teams. Mike McDonald's going to call the defense, but it's going to take a long time, I think, well into the season before the Seahawks are playing the full Baltimore Ravens Mike McDonald defense of disguising and shifting at the snap. They're not there yet. The offense with Ryan Grubb from the University of Washington, we all saw Michael Penix Jr. thrive in his deep downfield passing game. It's predicated on the offensive line. And he had the best one in college football at Washington. He is inheriting has been one of the worst ones in the NFL the last half dozen years. That's the key to this entire season on offense for Geno Smith and Ryan Grubb. What can the offensive line do? McDonald in the defense, they've got personnel, Devin Witherspoon, Leonard Williams. There's questions at linebacker, but the secondary is the strength of the team. They've got personnel to do what Mike McDonald wants to do, attacking offenses and confusing them. Again, it's just going to take time. They're in a division, guys, as you know, that San Francisco has just absolutely dominated them along the line of scrimmage. And I'm not sure that they're, especially in the offensive line, they're still very thin on the interior of the defensive line at defensive tackle. Only 3 true tackles on the roster, only 1 true nose tackle. San Francisco is going to run right at them and challenge them physically. And I just don't see them in one offseason with a regime change and all that's new, getting that much better on the line of scrimmage to challenge San Francisco for the division. So if they're not going to win the division, they're where they've really been the last 10 years, right? On the fringes of playoff contention, maybe a wild card, 9-10 wins max, and then maybe a win in the playoffs, and then second round get boat race out of Green Bay, Philadelphia, Dallas, or San Francisco. So I'm not sure this is the year to say, well, Mike McDonald's going to take them to the quantum leap. But they absolutely decided this, not just for this year, but they wanted Mike McDonald to come in and change the culture, regime, and systems for the future beyond 2024. So long answer to your question, Blake. I think 9 wins is an optimistic look at this season.
You know, but at least it's not, it won't be boring, right?
No.
We've always said, 500 NFL teams, like, they're fun to watch because you got to watch every game. That's the thing. The Russell Wilson heyday, you could skip a game. You knew they were going to beat Team X.
You could skip a game. I had to cover them all. But I get your point. Yeah, exactly.
Tune into every single game. Geno Smith has not really shined so far. And that's always been the question since he's risen to prominence with Seattle is, was that just it? Was that the pinnacle, a brief pinnacle of his career? Is he capable of more? And he's not exactly getting young. So what do you expect out of Geno Smith to start the year?
I expect him to thrive in Ryan Grubb's offense. If, these are ifs, 2 big ones. If he can get Kenneth Walker in the running game going, people think Ryan Grubb just wants to throw it 50 yards down the field every play. They forget Dylan Johnson was a 1,200-yard rusher for the Washington Huskies last year in Grubb's offense. He's an offensive line coach first and foremost. That's how he grew up. And he really wants to run the ball first. I think people are sleeping on Kenneth Walker's impact on this season and on Geno Smith and the offense as a whole. I think eventually Smith's going to be – you're going to see more of Smith doing what he's best at, which is accurately throw the ball down the field. He throws a very accurate deep ball that is easy to catch and is often placed away from defenders, even in coverage. And last year, Shane Waldron had him doing a lot of short, quick timing throws, getting the ball out. He spent the first month and a half of the season with the quickest throws in his shortest air yard targets. Jackson Smith and Jigba spent much of the season at less than 3 yards a target, among the league fewest and among wide receivers. Smith and Jigba is going to be going down the field this year. You're going to see DK Metcalf in the slot, which makes Geno Smith, it gives him more options than he's had in the past, and defense is more to think about. Geno Smith, to me, guys, is part of the solution, not the problem in Seattle. The problem, to me, has been a supporting cast around him, primarily the offensive line. And now they're trying a new center in Connor Williams, who's 8 months out from an ACL repair and has only gotten 2 weeks to learn the offense and practice that the rest of the team has had 5 months to practice before the opener. So he's got a steep learning curve. They've got a new full-time right guard in Anthony Bradford, the second-year guy from LSU. They've got a new right tackle because Abe Lucas, they don't know when he might come back to play after the offseason knee surgery. So George Fant, the journey now 4th NFL team. He started his career, of course, with Seattle as a college basketball player from Western Kentucky. He's the starting right tackle now. A new starting left guard in Laken Tomlinson in on a 1-year deal at age 32. The only sure thing on the offensive line is left tackle Charles Cross in year 3 of his rookie deal. That's 80% of the offensive line. It's either new or have questions on. To me, Geno Smith, Ryan Grubb, all Smith and Jigba, Metcalf, Lockett, Walker, all of it's predicated on that offensive line. And that's how I think they're going to get judged on this year.
Greg, you've mentioned Kenneth Walker a couple of times, had a fine rookie season and backed it up with a solid second season. How much growth potential is there? And the shelf life of featured backs in the NFL is so short. I mean, he may be in his statistical prime in year number 3, but What do you expect from him, and how much more growth is there in Kenneth Walker's game?
A lot and a lot, Jeff. I expect a lot, and I think there's going to be a lot of growth in his game, and I think Ryan Grubb's going to get and feature all of it. Walker has had some of the best 2-yard runs in Seahawks history the last couple of years. There are 5 guys in the backfield waiting on him like he's a bus, and he breaks through 5 to get a gain of 2. Those gain of 2s have caused 3rd and 8s and 3rd and 9s and 3rd and 7s, and that's what's made the problems on offense and 3rd downs and pass protection and all of it. Their red zone and their 3rd down numbers were atrocious last year. I think Ryan Grubb's going to have the offense more predicated on running the ball more consistently, not giving up on it as quickly as Shane Waldenoff did in games, not just with Kenneth Walker, but with Zach Charbonnet. But they really love getting Kenneth Walker the ball in space. Ryan Grubb cites a lot of statistics that say that Walker is among the best in the NFL at making guys miss and yards after contact. So they're going to get him the ball outside. They'll even line him up at wide receiver at times to get him the ball quickly. They want to get him the ball in space one-on-one with defenders. This is a long way of saying, Jeff, that Kenneth Walker is a huge piece of this that no one's talking about. And I think you're going to see the most use of Kenneth Walker in the most varied ways and the most touches per game of his career so far.
What about the opportunity to open at home on Sunday against a team like Denver? I know there are no easy games if you don't show up and play at or near your best, but this seems like an opportunity for the Seahawks to get out of the gates in a hurry.
Yeah, Jeff, when you got into the schedule, of course, the opponents were decided at the regular season ended last year, the home and away opponents. And when you looked at those opponents before they even decided where they would fall on the schedule in May, you said, okay, the on paper weakest opponent for a home game is Denver, and the weakest opponent on a road game Seattle had is New England. And they get those 1 and 2 to begin the season in that order. It's not Mike Macdonald could not have asked the NFL for a better start for his defense to learn and get to grow, because they're going to play a rookie quarterback in his first NFL start. I've known a story for the News Tribune, and I'll publish it probably today or tomorrow, about Hall of Fame quarterbacks, not just Bo Nix, but Hall of Fame first-round quarterbacks in their first NFL starts, and it's bad. I mean, 53%, 65 passer rating, 1 touchdown, 3 interceptions. I'm talking about Dan Marino, Joe Montana, John Elway. It's not good. So that's an optimal start for Seattle. And you would think they could win a game with a rookie quarterback in his first NFL week and on the road. And then you got Jacoby Brissett, looks like over Drake May in week 2. They couldn't have scripted it any better, which is not to say that they win both games, but that they can afford to have perhaps more missed assignments, or can afford to not have to use all of Mike Macdonald's tricks and defense and disguises in week 2, so that by the time San Francisco comes here in week 6, maybe they're more full of the defense that they're going to be eventually.
Is Devin Witherspoon going to get more varied looks? How are they going to use him, do you think?
Well, Blake, I think he's the best player in the team. And
wow,
his swagger, his the way he wants to support and tackle against the run, he wants to make dive play tackles. That first game last year of his career in Detroit, he was making tackles on dive plays over the guards. So the Lions saw that and ran a flea flicker dive pitch back to the quarterback, and Witherspoon was beaten for a touchdown 40 yards down the field. Witherspoon is going to play like he did last year, primarily nickel and then outside at times at outside corner. The Seahawks are going to play a lot more 3 safeties. They were thinking of doing it with Jamal Adams, but they were going to use Adams last year as more of a linebacker. This year with Kevon Wallace, along with Rayshon Jenkins and Julian Love back there at safety, they're going to use a lot of 3 safeties, which will push Witherspoon outside to corner. What Macdonald's thinking there is on 1 down, Witherspoon is an inside nickel, covering a slot guy, and then the next play, 24, Kevon Wallace is in what looks like a nickel, but he's actually a 3rd safety playing more like a linebacker. Again, confusing and disguising. So you are going to see Witherspoon move around a lot. I think you're going to see Witherspoon traveling and trailing top receivers at times, which the Seahawks rarely did, even with Richard Sherman under Pete Carroll. I think Mike Macdonald knows he's got a special player in Devin Witherspoon. He's going to feature him under bright lights the entire season.
Before we let you go, I know you were tracking Roger Goodell's comments down in Brazil, which them in Brazil. Okay, whatever.
How about the wives of the writers having to basically be the surrogate tweeters for the writers down at the Eagles writers have their wives tweeting because Brazil doesn't allow Twitter down there.
Oh my God. That's right. It just started that ban. That's right.
Yes, it's hilarious. It's sad. In some ways sad, but it's pretty funny what the lengths they're going to. But yeah, Brazil, NFL.
But Goodell saying 7 international games next season. Is he going to go north of the border? Or is the CFL going to try to block that again? What do you think?
My honest opinion, and I don't want to disparage my great Canadian friends, and you know how much I love that country, and I spend a lot of my money up in your province. Yes,
you do. We like it. Yeah.
But I don't think Canada's where they're looking.
No, they want business opportunities, right?
Yeah, exactly. They've already got a Canadian market, and they've already got a fan following and contracts with media rights up there. They don't need to go there. They're already there.
Yeah.
They're thinking China. They're thinking the Far East, Japan. There are a lot of untapped markets they're still going to go to, but they love Germany. The revenue they get from Germany and licensing and television advertising and merchandise is when I went over there from Munich, it was like an NFL city, how much they knew the game and all the jerseys you saw. And all of Europe comes to those European games. They come from Sweden and all over the place. They're going to go to Spain for the first time next year. I'm sure hoping the Seahawks get that game.
Yeah.
I really believe we're not there yet, but maybe a CBA or two from now, we're going to have an NFL team based in Europe. Mm-hmm. Once they figure out the 18-game schedule, perhaps add a bye to it. Then perhaps if you have 2 bye weeks, you can work a schedule where everyone would get a bye by playing that team. I've thought it was going to be in London, that eventually it'll be an NFC Far East team or an AFC Far East team in London. But, man, did they love Germany. But now they're kicking the tires on Brazil because of their population base, in Spain. And you can bet China's the next frontier. But, yeah, wherever there's more money to be made, NFL owners are going to find it.
That World League of American Football, remember London was the big London and the German teams, right? Those were the big teams. Amsterdam was okay, I think, too, for a moment. But
Scottish Claymores were not quite as high.
Look at you. Thank you, Greg. We're looking forward to it. It should be a fun team to watch, and we'll hear from you not too far down the road, I'm sure.
Yeah, anytime. Anytime there's a lull in Canucks free agency talk, give me a call.
Thank you, sir.
All right. Thanks, guys.
The Vancouver Canadians are back at the Nat. Catch fireworks, giveaways, and Friday nooners all spring and summer long. Get your tickets at CanadiansBaseball.com. On Sekeres and Price, featuring Jeff Paterson, the newest Vancouver Whitecap via Dundee United, Celtic, Southampton as well. And he comes late in the season and not a moment too soon. Stuart Armstrong joining us here on Sekeres and Price. Welcome, Stuart. How are you?
Very good, thanks. Very good. Very happy to be here. Thanks for having me on.
It sounds like it. We've been reading some of your welcome pieces from various publications and such, and it seems like the first week has gone okay for you.
Yeah, it's gone really well. It's been a bit of a whirlwind, so the time's gone fast. There's a lot of stuff to sort out and organize, but everyone at the club's been helping me and holding my hand along the journey, so it's been good.
And yet your best welcome wagon has left you. You've graciously given up your international spot there on Scotland for your old mate Ryan Gauld. So he's not here, unfortunately, but everybody else has been welcoming enough and got you acclimated.
Yeah, I know. The one guy I know has just left me. But yeah, everyone else at the club has been so nice, so helpful. I'm a grown man. I'm 32, but I've been acting like I'm, 15, straight out of school, and everyone's been showing me where to go, what to do, which has been great because obviously I'm far away from home. So to have that integration from the club is being really special.
We'll talk about football in a sec, but I'm just curious, how much did you know about the city itself, and how much did Vancouver play in the decision when you were looking to sort of spread your wings and find your next football home?
Yeah, I think the city itself was very important to me and also my young family to come to. And everyone I spoke to about Vancouver always said how nice it was. People who play against Vancouver and come to the city tell me it's a great city. And I can vouch for that now, having been here for a week. So yeah, it's the destination was very important. And I'm very happy we've landed here in Vancouver.
Are you adjusted? I spent the last couple of weeks in Europe, and I'm still fighting jet lag here, and not getting the sleep that I want. Like, where are you on your body clock?
Yeah, just about there nearly. The first week was tough, but I think the last couple of nights have been a bit more normal for me. So I'm hoping a few more days and I'll be fine.
Well, they're missing 5 players, as you well know, and Sam's a little dinged. So, would you mind playing 90 this weekend? What have you got in you? Because this is you're arriving at quite a time here. How many minutes do you think you can go?
Yeah, it's strange because obviously I've just come off the back of a season and then not had a preseason, not played football in a couple of months. But I come here and the guys are sort of in the business end. Everyone's away in international week, so I hope I can play some minutes, and I hope I can coincide that with building the fitness and getting the match sharpness back. So I love to play, so hopefully I can do that as soon as possible.
Before we leave your welcome wagon stories, we just had Wrexham here. Are you buddies with any of the Scots on Wrexham?
No, I can't say, but
James Jones or anything. No, yeah. Okay. Let's get into some of what you can bring to this club, because we know where Ryan plays and of course Brian up top. You're going to be the third prong of that offensive juggernaut, we suspect. Your preference, and we know Coach ultimately has final say on that sort of thing, but where do you think you're most effective, in the middle or on the flank?
I would say definitely in the middle,
yeah.
And hopefully bring some creativity. That's what I like to do. I'm definitely more offensive than defensive, but also kind of be that box-to-box player that can do a bit of both. But I would say primarily to connect defense to attack, and also join in and hopefully contributes with some goals and assists.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, how much of a learning curve is a new league like MLS? Like, do you worry about the opponents and sort of figuring out the league itself, or are you just more focused on trying to find your fit here with Whitecaps?
Yeah, a bit of both. I'm excited to see firsthand what the league is like and get the rhythm. I think when you go somewhere new, certainly for me in the past, it always takes a bit of time to adjust. Hopefully not too long, because we've got some important games coming up. But yeah, I'm more excited to see what the league is like and how we play as a team, and trying to fit into that the best way I can. There's
a different way of playing for Vanny. He's zonal defense, defensively, a little bit of a different manager. Have you caught wind of that yet? Have you sort of eyebrow raised at anything he's mentioned about how he plays?
No, not particularly.
No.
I think he is quite aggressive. I noticed that from his style when he was explaining the tactics.
Yeah.
But I like his fundamentals and I like the way he plays. I like being on that side of it rather than being on the defensive side of it. So I quite like his aggressive style.
Yeah.
Obviously, it's going to take me hopefully not too long to learn, but a few idiosyncrasies to get on board with. But it's an exciting way to play. And I watched the previous game, and it's fast flowing and direct and exciting. So yeah, I'm looking forward to being part of it.
It can be loose at times. You're right. You'll find it's a little bit more wide open. Do you still feel like you've got your legs at your decrepit age here of 32 that you brought up?
We'll soon find out. I think that'll just get hopefully stronger and stronger as the weeks go by. But yeah, sometimes that can be quite exciting football and hopefully entertaining as well for the fans.
Well, we're looking forward to it. And you see this team. The good news is, with a lot of these MLS transfers, they often come into teams that need them, like that desperately need them, and you're asked to wear a cape and be a hero. It seems more like they're asking you to be the cherry on top here. Is that sort of a fun role for you to take on here, that this isn't a last place team looking for a hero. This is a team looking for that one last piece here.
Yeah, well, having seen the boys in training and the quality is good. And obviously we've got a few players to come back who are going to add the quality. So I don't see myself wearing the cape. I think hopefully I can come in and complement what's already here and just continue to improve the team and climb up the table.
Well, good luck in doing that. Good luck in your last little bits of training here before what we hope is a debut. Again, 90. Push for 90 here, Stuart. We need you. We will have the call for you, myself and Paul Dolan on MLS Season Pass. Looking forward to it. Thanks for this, Stuart.
Amazing. Thanks for having me on, guys. Great to